valve clearances are next, and this isn't as frightening as it seems. It's in fact, it's a very satisfying job to be able to check the valve clearances. I tend to call these analog valve clearances as opposed to the ones on the newer bikes like my RT, totally different. Because you could do something about it so easily. You can adjust them so easily by yourself, and they're not expensive. These gauges here, you need, for this model, you need two 15s, for most models actually, but not the newest ones. Two 15s and two 30s. The 30s are for the exhaust side, and you know which the exhaust side is because this is the exhaust, in this case on the left hand side, and the inlet size 15 for the right hand side where the fuel injector is. The first thing you have to do is get the engine in top dead center. Now it's in top dead center in two positions, but you need it on the compression stroke on this side that I'm working on now. So it's 50-50. You might be, and the reason you know is that there's no movement. It's on top dead center at the moment, but on the other cylinder. The compression stroke is on the other cylinder, not on this one. These are solid. There's no movement at all. So I've got to wind the engine around. The way I do it is just with a wrench and a 17mm spanner on the alternator bolt, the engine bolt, in a top gear. So put it in a 5th gear. You can either rock your back wheel, but not do that on your own, or you do it this way. And there's a little eyeglass I have such a struggle seeing, that you're supposed to wind around and get that to top dead center. I don't know whether I can even photograph it. So let me try first so you know what you're supposed to do, and then I'll show you the way I do it. First of all, I need to show you where we're looking here. This is the right hand side of the engine, and these pipes are in the way at the moment. But can you see that hole there? Now that hole has a little rubber cover on it, which I've taken off, so otherwise you never see it. So you take that off and you wind the engine around. This is what I don't think I'm going to be able to show you. You wind the engine around until you can see OT in the center of that. Oh, it's so hard to do. But that means you're at top dead center on one of the strokes, but you don't know which one you're on. So that's what you want. If you want to do it the right way, that's what you're supposed to do. But there is another way, and you can check it as well. Let me show you what I do. I call my method the chopstick method, because I have one chopstick that I always use, and I put it in through the spark plug hole. And at the moment the cylinder is at the top of its travel, but on the wrong stroke. So what I've got to do is wind the engine, which I do with and it must go in the correct direction, and you mustn't wind back if you miss it. And what you'll see is the chopstick going down. See it going into the cylinder as the piston goes down, because it's touching the top of the piston. So it goes right down to the bottom. Now it's coming out. Now you've got to stop it before it goes down again, so you don't really know when that is, because you can't wind the engine back. If you miss it, you've got to go round again. So you get to know it. There's a hesitation there. I would say that is it. That's at top dead center on the stroke. There's movement there. There's movement there. Not a lot actually, but it may be okay. Let me go around and see whether the mark is in the right position. The marker is in exactly the right position. It's just like I showed you just now. It's OT in the middle of the window. So I'm on the compression stroke on the left hand cylinder, which is the one I'm doing, and you've got that movement. These are worth their weight in gold. So with the 30 gauge, I undo the locking nuts, which I've just undone, put it in there, and with an Allen key in the middle. See, that's too tight, I can't pull it back a bit. You want to be able to slide it and it stays there. Just nip it up a little bit, like that. Go to the bottom one. So that's what you're looking for. They slide, but they don't fall out. Now we go to the inlet valve. I thought these felt a little bit tight, but I'm not sure. No, maybe not. Maybe it's me. That slides and it stays. Slides and it stays. So they're okay. Israel told me he'd done, the previous owner told me he'd done the valves, and he'd done them very, very well. You can see how they all stay in there, they all move. So that's the valve clearance is done. It's very satisfying to do this. I can put the spark plugs back now before I put the covers on. So brand new spark plugs go in, and they are different from the lower ones, and I didn't know why. It's because the thread on these main primary sparking plug is 14 millimeters. And the one on the secondary sparking plug is 13 millimeters. I found that out because I just tried to put the wrong one in the main one. So now just check the torque setting on this. It's gone in very smoothly. This is a side that was okay, so it didn't need recutting. The other side we know goes in very well as well. So let me get the torque setting. So you thread it in as I did, just with your hand, you know there's no cross threading, and then put the torque wrench on, and it's 25 Newton meters. Nice and gently. There we are, 25 Newton meters. And you know your spark plug is brand new, and it's gone in not cross-threaded and taken to the right torque. So these are the secondary spark plugs. They look identical, but it's a 13 millimeter thread. So if you try and put it either way, you get them wrong, they won't go in. And these have the same size spanner, believe it or not, and they go right in underneath. I'll try and show you that it's not easy. So I'm directly lying on my back, even though the bike is on its stand, and holding the camera and just turning this spark plug by hand, and it's gone up. This is a secondary one underneath. I now need to torque it to 25 Newton meters. I just can't lie on my back and torque and hold the camera at the same time, but you can see what to do. So these do protrude. You don't have this tunnel going all the way down, but they've still got to be treated with care. Wind them in by hand first. I've put the covers back now, and they just go up to 8 Newton meters. It's hardly anything, is it? Just means that they're torqued against the existing gasket. A very simple part of the service is to change the air filter. I already took the old one out weeks ago when I was looking for something in here. So all I've got to do is put a new one in its place. So one big empty hole and a new air filter here. After changing this one compared to my RT, which is a nightmare. Thank goodness it's only every 2 years. So one thing I hate doing on the RT, but this one is a joy. In fact, most things, to be truthful, have been so easy to get to compared to later models. So that's the air filter done. Now I've got to do something I've never done, and that is to change the clutch fluid, which is .4, the same as brake fluid. Well, I must admit, I didn't know what I was looking for. So going through Haynes' manual, it says this can be on either side of the machine, but this is what I need. And it's held on by a cable tie, which I have to cut. And then I have to put a valve. I just hope I ordered the right valve from Motorworks, like a brake bleeding valve, in there. So let me go and get the clippers. So I've put additional cable ties here. But this is the cable tie I'm looking for. Oh yeah, it drops down. So I can access it, whatever I do. The instructions are that you pull back this insulating sleeve, put an Allen key in there. I presume you another something else that will not come undone. Thought this would be easy. Boy, that is tight. Why is everything so tight? Oh, it's not come undone. It's rounded it right off. Oh, not again. This valve was in the end where I've put that one there. This is done with red Loctite. I didn't realise that until I looked for a new one with Motorworks, because this Allen key completely gone. It wouldn't move at all. you buy a new one of these for £33, but what you have to buy anyway for £8 is a valve. So when you take that out, when I heated it up, because red Loctite you have to heat up. That's why I couldn't move it at first. You have to heat it up, and then I undid that valve. Just going to order one from Motorworks. Thought, hang on a minute, surely this valve will work. The valve I've got to have in it anyway, and that can stay in it with a cap on. Then all I do, I happen to have a vacuum brake leader. I just put that on, fill up the clutch, I pump it up to create a vacuum, and then I just release that valve a moment, and you can see the air coming through. So that's a much better way to solve the problem of a seized valve there, because you need a valve anyway. And you can actually get a stabless one. So I just bleed brake fluid all the way through. I will admit it looks fairly clean. I think it must have been done sometime. And then just close it up, even just with my fingers, just for that second, while I top. So I don't need to use the clutch lever while I top up more brake. So this stainless steel valve just screws up and locks itself off. I just tighten it with the 13 and 11, put a cap on the end and pull the insulation back. So I've tightened it up. I've got copper grease on the thread so it's not going to bind with the steel, and put a little cap on. I can pull the insulation down now so it covers it, and that can be cable tied. That can be cable tied back to where it was before up here, and that's the brakes. That's the clutch. And I know that it's neatly tucked away, insulated at the end, protected, and worked a treat. Well, I thought that was the servicing complete, and it is really, but I found another problem. This is a preload adjuster for the rear shock absorber, and it's solid. I've taken the cap off, I've put plus gas in for ages, and I've worked it with a spanner inside, and I've got it to move, but only that, whereas it should move a lot. The reason I tried it is that I put the seat on the bike, and for the first time I've sat on it, and I can hardly reach the ground, just with the tip of my toes. I've never experienced that before, and I've ridden a few GS's, so I'm really worried. I think this is a problem. I'm going to put everything else back on. The windscreen, new windscreen that's come, the tank, the labels on the tank, the crash bars. You don't need to see me put all those things on. It's boring, because if you haven't got these crash bars, then it will mean nothing to you. So I'll finish the bike now, because the service is done. I can do nothing about the shock absorber or the height at this moment.